today. A couple of announcements before we get started. As always, love to welcome new members. I'd like to do a shout out to Allegra Jaffe, who's a caregiver and caregiver specialist at Fairfax County Area Agency on Aging. Tim Dibble, who's a caregiver for a 79-year-old mother in Alexandria. Brandy Smith from Home Instead out of Norfolk. Home Instead does a great job and wonderful. Amber Yeagle, caregiver in the Richmond area. Thanks for joining us. Mary Ann Gower, caregiver, Catholic Charities of Eastern Virginia. Angel Ramsey, caregiver out of Waynesboro. And Dale Henry, a caregiver here in Virginia. So welcome all of you, and we look forward to hearing from you over the next few months. We'll be sending out some notices looking for committee members and committee heads. So hope you will step up and participate at that level. But in the meantime, glad to have you aboard. A few announcements of upcoming events that may be of interest to you. Dutch Haven Assisted Living, along with Kindred Hospice, invite you to join them for a conversation about mental health, the stigma, related behaviors, communication, and accessing resources. Is presented by DSS, licensing inspector, and VCC member Sharon DeBeauvert. That'll be Thursday, September 23rd from 10 to 2. Light refreshments available. That's in Woodstock. Check with us if you're interested in joining. We'll send you a link. Also, Joyce Nussbaum, are you here?
Yeah, she's coming in now.
Okay. All right, Joyce, when Joyce gets on, please wave your hand. Okay. All right. So, okay. Insight Memory Care Center is presenting a caregiver boot camp on Saturday, September 25th at 9 o'clock in the morning. They ask you to join IMCC for a free special morning training event covering many essential caregiving topics. These include understanding dementia diagnosis and treatment, managing someone else's money, tips for accepting fiduciary responsibility, and what I wish I had known, perspectives from family caregivers. The next event they have is on Thursday, September 16th. That's today. Take the first step. That's at 10 o'clock. So that's a bit of a conflict here. You can't be in two places at once. So coming up as well is the Northern Virginia DCC Caregiver Conference, Caregiving as Memories Fade. 35th Annual Caregivers Conference, Tuesday, November 9th through Thursday, November 11th at 10 o'clock a.m. They ask you to please join them and the Northern Virginia Dementia Care Consortium for the 35th Annual Caregivers Conference. All right.
Chris, do you know if these are recorded? I would really like to do the boot camp, but I'm traveling that day. So I guess probably just need to contact them and probably at least register in order to get hands on a recording.
Yeah, I'm sure if you Google them, the link will come up and they'll send you to where that is.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Next, Aging in Place, a panel conversation. Join us for this session on Friday, October 1st. Panel includes Diane Duke, Don Ryan, and Leah Fees, Doctor of Nursing Practice. Okay, you can register at, let's see, https bit.ly/AAA panel. Again, all this information is available from Nick and Liza. All the webinars on this series will be recorded, and registrants will receive a link to the recording of the live event And for questions, contact Juliana Valencia Ordenes, a member in good standing of VCC at the Fairfax County AAA. Okay, let's see. Let's have some reports from the Education Committee. Donna, do you have any news to report?
I've gotten some suggestions for speakers for our November meeting from people. I haven't reached out and contacted the potential speakers yet. That's on my to-do list. So I'll have more details later, but we have a speaker for today.
Yes, we do, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, is Moretta here with us today? No?
It's
Okay.
not in yet.
Okay. Nick, any updates?
Yeah, I had a couple more informational stuff to come over. One this morning, or George shared it with me yesterday. Joyce might want to share it, but VPAS is hosting the Confident Caregiver Hub event September 21st, 3 to 4 p.m. Best Foot Forward Falls Prevention, and November 16th, 3 to 4 Hospice and End of Life Transitions. They're free of charge, but registration is required. I do have the flyers for that. I'll compile all this information and send them out. Also, the 2021 Memory Care Learning Series through Riverside, dealing with dementia, September 20th, 12:30 to 4:30. $25 includes a manual. Caring for You, Caring for Me, which that was a previous VCC presentation. October 13th and 20th, 4 to 6, which is free. And Normal versus Not Normal Aging, November 10th, 10 a.m. to noon, which is also free.
Nick, can I mention something about those real quickly, since those are our programs?
Absolutely.
So no more registrations for dealing with dementia, because that's happening on Monday.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a story about that. But we are doing Caring for You is a 5-part series that Dee and some of you know, but we are condensing it to a 2-part series just to kind of gain some interest. And we're finding folks are a little bit more leery of just joining something longer term. Maybe that's an online thing, we're not quite sure. So we're working with the Rosalind Carter Institute. They know we're going to offer this as a 2-part series. So there are 2 dates in October that you mentioned, and we are offering that virtually via Zoom at no charge. And then, as you mentioned, the TPA Snow that some of my colleagues will offer. And I just wanted to let you all know, we've been planning this memory series. We used to kind of offer one here and there, and we said, we need to package this and help our families know they could participate in one or all of them. And so it was going to be at Warwick Forest, which is our continuing care retirement community in Newport News. It was going to be last spring, and then it went to the fall, and then it went to this spring. Here we are to this fall. You all know what that's like. And then this fall, the in-person went to virtual. And we're having some hard lessons learned by moving something virtual, because we didn't say you had to be a Virginia resident, because it was going to be at Warwick Forest. So if you could get to Newport News, you could participate. And so I just want to share lessons learned, because with dealing with dementia, that's on Monday, I'll be leading that one. That's another program out of the Rosalind Carter Institute. It comes with a manual that's this big, that's 300 pages. And so I was just at the post office this morning praying that my overnight and 2-day priority will get to these folks before Monday's training, because they have to have the manual to do the training. So the other 2 aren't as intensive in terms of the materials, and people can get those online. Other quick lesson learned is folks don't know what it means to sign up for something virtual. And so I spoke with a caregiver the other day, lovely lady caring for her husband, and she was in Portsmouth, and she said, well, I think I've done Skype before. Is this like Skype? And I actually could build on that conversation and talk to her, but taking a class to some folks virtual didn't mean they didn't understand, they didn't have a computer, they didn't have access. So I just share that with you all, because you all I should have reached out to some of you all, because we switched gears and we thought we can do this virtually. Rosalind Carter Institute has offered these programs virtually. We'll learn from them. But the way it was conveyed, I mean, our TPA Snow, the one we're doing in November, we just got a registration that came in from somebody in California. And we're like, okay, that's fine, because they can do it virtually, but it's not really TPA training. So we need to make sure they know that's our colleagues training on her behalf. So I just share that with you also. Thanks, Nick. I didn't mean to take so much time, but we're thankful that people are interested from everywhere. We're just trying to meet them where they are and get them what they need in time. So I welcome your all's input about how we can do that a little better next time.
Okay. Joyce, Nick kind of stole your thunder. Did you have anything you wanted to add about the VPAS series?
It was fun that you announced it, Nick. Thank you for doing that. We are just offering this program to our caregivers for a chance to hear about falls prevention and some other topics, but from the perspective of a caregiver. And we hear a lot about people feeling guilty because the person they're caring for fell, and those kind of stories. And so we're just looking for an audience and inviting anyone else to join us. So no, thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure. Nick, you've got news on the lifespan respite grant?
Oh yeah, I've got a smattering of news from all over. So the lifespan respite grant that has been running for the previous 3 years has officially ended. However, we did request a no-cost extension for the leftover funds that we had, most likely that were unspent due to COVID. And that was granted. So we do have our latest numbers. It was about $10,000 left that we could use towards providing reimbursement vouchers to caregivers, which is about 25 people. So those people are already approved. They're just still in their reimbursement period, is to give them time to kind of spend that money before we move into utilizing the new funding source, which is the 5-year grant that we received in July. It was like almost like 3 times the money we had received from the previous grant. And that has a whole bunch more going on with it. We've been having weekly meetings with Dr. Laura Sands from Virginia Tech, thanks to Emily Hoyt's connections there. She actually wrote the grant that we received. So we've been working with Dr. Sands weekly, trying to redesign the application material, and also using her experience doing research to try to figure out how to measure the data we're trying to learn from. Are we reaching the people we're attempting to reach? Are there better ways to ask questions? Can we find the gaps in services across the Commonwealth, is a reason why people are using this program, things like that. So we've been meeting with her. It's been awesome. I think she's wonderful, and she is so on top of her stuff, and she's just been very helpful, kind of taking some of the questions that Liza and I have had about our application materials and how this may be hard to understand on the other end of, someone who's a caregiver trying to fill this information out, or even, why are we asking this? Are we learning anything from this? Can we cut this out of the material? So we still have a lot going on with that. There is still plans once we get this program up and running. The goal is October 1st to kind of switch over to the new application material. It's something I would like to share with the VCC membership and get their feedback on if they feel like the application makes sense, or if this is too tedious and we should strip out some of this information, things like that. I would appreciate feedback on that. We also plan on trying to get some previous applicants involved too, to fill out the application material to compare it against their previous experiences in the program. And let's see what else we got. So yeah, that's kind of going on with the new grant, just stuff in the background, trying to get up and running. It's a lot more involved. Not that I thought it would be. I knew it was going to be more than anything, but as probably everyone knows how hard it is when you have to switch gears constantly between 3 or 4 different things and answering emails. So the VCC guide, which has been in final edits for like 4 months now, is still in final edits. We had to get Adobe Pro so Liza and I could actually do it on our end. And trying to do that through the state is not a slow, it's not a quick process. So that took a little while to get everything we need. And hopefully we're going to get the seats up and running after this meeting today, so I can start that. But we do have money for printing that left over from the previous lifespan respite voucher program. So we already have money set aside for printing that out. I think we were planning on printing 1,000 copies and then making that available online as well. And the only other update I have is we had talked in the executive committee about the VCC homepage, and that Virginia Navigator was willing to host that there. We also have money for that coming out of the previous lifespan respite grant as well. I have to follow up with Virginia Navigator. The goal is also to get that project moving on October 1st. So Virginia Navigator will essentially host all of our previously recorded meetings, any useful information that we kind of talk about in the meetings, or things that people want to share with the membership, that would be located there. The membership application would be located there. And then ideally, if we could get like a little calendar of events, we would also like to put that there as well, along with some other things that we're still working on. So that's kind of everything on my end.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sharon DeBavier, I think before you got on, we made an announcement about your upcoming program. Did you have any more information on that you wanted to share?
Okay, Chris, my brain is fried. What is our upcoming program?
Never mind. No, it's the program you're hosting with Dutch Haven Assisted Living and Kindred Hospice.
Yes, the mental health program that we're doing. We still have registration open through Friday.
Okay.
For that program. We are requiring, by the way, guys, masks, and we will be checking temps at the door. But we have plenty of space to space people out. So unless the local VDH tells us otherwise, we will go with it as planned as a live program. So we do still have some seats available and are able to, like I said, space people out.
Okay, that's great. And yeah, for all of you over in the Valley, that's pretty convenient and probably be a great program. So thanks, Sharon. Moretta, any updates from the membership committee while we're here? There you are. I see you.
Now you see me. No, you don't. No, I don't have any updates right now.
All right. Yeah, we're continuing to still get a great mix of professional caregivers and private caregivers, home folks, and I think that's a really healthy mix for the organization. And we look forward to sort of getting everybody's input on that and how that interaction can be really, really productive. So we'll be working on that in the months ahead. All right. Any other new business? George, you got anything?
I do, Chris, thanks. So I've got three things. One is, so two are events. The first is, hang on just a second. The Alzheimer's Association Greater Richmond chapter is putting on their annual conference on dementia. It's going to be virtual. It's next Thursday, September 23rd from 9 to 2. And you need to register on the Alzheimer's Association website. I'll put the link in the chat and Nick can send it out as well. Some really good programs there. One that I'm really looking forward to is Dr. Percy Griffin talking about sleep and dementia, the chicken and the egg. So I'm really interested to hear what he's going to say, because there's been a lot of new research coming out about sleep and dementia. So I think that'll be really good. And there's also Dr. Aravich talking about post-COVID-19 brain health, and Dr. Carl Hill talking about health equity and dementia research and programs. So a really interesting program of speakers. So I encourage everybody to join that. It is free. The other one is Aging Together, and Culpeper is hosting their annual 2021 their annual dementia education conference. It's going to be virtual and it's free for family caregivers. It's $25 for healthcare professionals. Again, I'll put the link in the chat for registration. It's October 12th and 13th. It's called A Positive Approach to Dementia Care. So they will be covering some TIPA Snow stuff and quite a lot of other good topics like resiliency and overcoming social isolation. So another one I recommend highly. And then finally, I'd just like to let everybody know that DARS Dementia Services, we have a new little product called Home Safety Informational Toolkit for Dementia. It has links and resources on things like driving, home safety, emergency preparation, and quite a lot of other stuff. And that's going to go up on our website in the next day or two. And if anybody would like a copy of that, it's a 6-page PDF. I am more than happy to share that. So thanks, Nick.
Thanks, George. And George, I want to thank you too for, I've sent you a few novice caregivers over the last few weeks. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to orient them to the role and to the resources available. Just a real credit to your office. So thanks for that.
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay. Nick, George, you guys, do you have any idea that what Marcia or Kathy might be telling us about?
Well, Kathy just jumped on actually.
Where? Oh, there you are. Okay, come on. Any updates from DARS, Kathy? Came on just the right time. Maybe she's there. I see her. Okay, going once. DARS, going twice. Okay.
Who knows? She might be on the phone.
Okay. All right. To introduce our guest speaker today, Donna, our education chair. Take it away.
Okay, Patrice, oh, there you are. I said, Patrice, are you ready? Okay. So today we're going to be hearing a presentation called Taking Care of You. We'll be hearing from Patrice Beard, who just turned her camera on. She's a wife and mother of 2. She's a mental health liaison for the Center for Family Involvement at Virginia Commonwealth University's Partnership for People with Disabilities, where she has been for 8 years. Currently, Patrice serves as board chair for the Virginia Behavioral Health Advisory Council. She is certified to teach and present on the following topics: basics, family to family, children's challenging behaviors, ending the silence, and parent and teachers as allies. Patrice holds certifications for the National Council for Behavioral Health, Youth and Adult Mental Health First Aid, USA, and Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training called ASSIST. Patrice, I'm turning it over to you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It sounds so important, when she reads it out like that. I'm going to definitely have to shorten that. Thank you for inviting me. I know Moretta, my girl, reached out and asked me to speak. We work together at the Center for Family Involvement. I'm going to try to make this as interactive as possible. Nick is going to help me with the chats. I'm going to also raise hands, and if you want to say something, just if you unmute, I think you'll come up on top, and I'll be able to get your input. And at the very end, I know there's a survey that Nick's going to share, and if you could fill that out for me, that would be great. Thanks, everyone. So Moretta asked me, like I said before, to present on caregiving. So I just wanted to kind of get just a feel for what's going on in the last 5 years. And I found this infographic very interesting. And I wanted you all to take a look at it. And this is the last 5 years. And if you notice, all the numbers are increasing. What do you all think about that? What are your thoughts on that? So the percentage goes from 18 to 24 for caring for more than one person. Coordination of care, the difficulties increased. Caring for someone with Alzheimer's is increased. Family givers' own health, right? Fair to poor went from 17 to 21%. Does that seem realistic to you all? Is that what you're seeing? Is this accurate, do you think? If you can give me a thumbs up, or if you want to make a reaction. I just found that to be
I think that's I think that's definitely something that I'm hearing out in the community. I work in brain injury rehabilitation, and we're definitely seeing an increase in numbers for caregivers and needs, not just the caregivers, but needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
There's a,
So I'm going to ask some questions about things that I'm reading that caregivers need the most of. And if you want to raise your hand virtually, physically, or chat, I'd love to hear from you. So the first thing, 6 things a family caregiver needs most. So I'd love to know if you all agree or disagree. Physical support. The amount of physical work that goes into caring for a loved one or a senior. You agree with that? That would be, raise your hand if you agree with that. Recognition. It's a thankless job, right? Emotional support. I can imagine how draining that would be. Help with time-consuming tasks. And time to yourself. We're always caring. We're the caregiver when you make time for yourself. So also some common challenges for the caregiver. And again, I'd love to hear if you can relate to any of these, or you know that anybody that can relate to any of these. I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, but I just want to see if you can relate to this. So common challenges, managing your time, right? You have less time, you do, and you don't have time for yourself. Emotional, physical stress, I can only imagine. Lack of privacy. Financial strain. I know my daughter is a certified nursing assistant, and she does a whole lot and gets paid a whole little, right? Sleep deprivation. Being afraid to ask for help. Depression and isolation. All these things that I'm talking about can cause compassion fatigue. Has anybody heard of compassion fatigue? Yeah. So I looked up a Wikipedia. Here's our definition for compassion fatigue. What I find interesting about that is it is referred to as secondary traumatic stress. Have you all heard of that? Have you heard of that concept? Yeah, it's traumatic. You're constantly dealing with, someone else's stress and dealing with what they're going through and taking care of them, and it's putting stress on you. And that's why it's so important to take care of you, right? So what can compassion fatigue look like? And I want you to think about this. Ask yourself, when I go through this, are you experiencing any of this? Or do you know somebody who's experiencing any of these symptoms? So what do these look like? Tired, exhaustion, in all ways. Helpless, hopeless, powerless. Angry, sad, numb. I know sometimes people don't correlate anger with depression, but that is a very real symptom of depression and sadness. I would say, not to make a generalization, but if I had to make it, I would say sometimes I'll look at like my son who's going through depression, and it didn't look like what my daughter was going through, because my daughter was sad and crying and he just wanted to fight and be angry about everything. And I missed it, right? Because I didn't realize that. Detached, decreased pleasure. Ruminating and stressing, and like I do sometimes. I'm lying in bed all night long and my thoughts just won't stop, and I just keep going on and on and on and on. Blaming yourself for feeling this way. What a vicious cycle that is, right? Shouldn't feel this way. They have it so much worse than me, or at least I'm not, whatever, right? Decrease professional accomplishment, like why bother? Like it doesn't matter. I'm not doing a good job. I'm just, that's an interesting, this is an interesting one I found. A change in your worldview or spirituality. That's something to think about. Is there something, have you stopped praying? Have you stopped going to where you go to worship if you did once before? Have you put that on the back burner because you're so overwhelmed and stressed? And here are the physical symptoms, right? All of it. So I know I've depressed you a whole lot, right? So now we're going to flip it and go to some stuff that we can do about it. But first we have to acknowledge it, right? So our physical and our mental health are like this. We cannot have one without the other. And we always need to remember that. If you're not feeling good, if you're sick, if you have a virus, if you have COVID, if you have chronic pain, what happens to your mental health, right? Your mental health is directly affected. And that's the same thing with your mental health. If you're not feeling well, if you're depressed, if you're sad, what happens? You might have a panic attack, which is very physical, headache, stomach ache. People really, we need to realize it's one and the same, right? We have to take care of both equally. So some things I suggest, and these are some things, these are not all things. So sometimes I'll go to virtual events or conferences or whatever, and they talk about things you can do to help yourself. Ask yourself these 20 questions before you go to bed. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just stressing me out just thinking about it. So these are all just things you can pick from, because what works for me might not work for you. And it's all about what works for you. So ask yourself these things right now. How are you feeling at the moment? Sometimes if I'm snapping and snipping and going, and I need to stop and say, where is this coming from? What's going on? And here's some other options. And I'm going to share this PowerPoint through a Google Drive afterwards, so you don't have to worry about writing all this down and all this stuff. So what am I putting off? I'm that to a T. I will stress about something a day before it's due and then work on it. I'm like, why did I worry all that and stress and time? Why didn't I just do it? What do I love about me? Not to get into it too much, but my daughter is 27 and she was diagnosed with multiple mental health conditions since age 10. And sometimes she'll get really down on herself, and it's so easy to pick ourselves to death, right? I hate this, I hate that, I hate blah, 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 blah. And if I catch her doing that in the mirror, I'm like, oh, whoops, stop. Before you walk away, now you got to tell me something that you like about yourself. Because if we can pound ourselves with bad thoughts and bad judgments on ourselves, I think what happens if you flip it around and we do that in reverse, opposite, and just keep with the good. What is my mantra? I don't do mantras so much, but. Oh, and there's another good one. How often do I pick myself to death and don't say anything positive about me, right? It's so easy just to say, you should give out advice, but you're not taking it yourself. But yet you still got people coming at you and asking for advice that you're not doing. We need to be more conscious of that. What can I let go that's getting in the way? That's a good reflection. You're overwhelmed. If you're overwhelmed, what can you let go? Have you been letting yourself feel your feelings? Like, I am not a crier. I don't know why. Something's like programmed in my head, like it's a weakness or something. I don't know. It must be, I don't know. Can't get into all that. But when I cry and let it out and let it go, it's like, I feel better, So feel your feelings. Social media. We need to go into social media. That's some toxic stuff sometimes, right? And sometimes we can't let it go and we're all consumed with it, but it's just weighing on us. Sometimes we're watching the news way too much, If you're watching a news channel and you're watching it for over 30 minutes, chances are they're repeating themselves and you've heard all you need to hear. And if you can feel your heart racing and you can feel your anxiety turn it off. Take a social media break if you need to. And being kinder. So we're going to talk about self-care. Y'all talk self-care. But let's go into it more. Now, I know that Nick is going to share a Jamboard link. Before you click on that, I just wanted to share this. Helping others, self-care is about replenishing yourself so that you can help others. If you are constantly giving, and you're not taking the time to fill your own well and fill yourself up with whatever that looks like for you, then pretty soon, what do you have left to give? Right? A lot of times I'll I'll talk to people at work or something and I can tell they're overwhelmed and I'll say, how's your well? You know, are you running on low? Are you empty? Can't keep giving out water if you're not taking time to supply yourself, right? So here's one of those interactive things. I want to do a Jamboard. And I think, Nick, did you share that? Okay, rock on. So there should be a Jamboard. And I'm going to pull mine up. And if you all click in your Jamboard, you should see this. Do you see this?
Yep.
No, thumbs up, thumbs down. If you see it, I see some people on there. If you go over here where it says sticky note and you click it, I want you to tell me what your self-care is. Type it in here and then you save it. You can pick your color. It's really cool and it'll all show up live. You can move it around. You can take yourself off mute if you're having a hard time. It's cool. So you can, once you type it in, you can drag it and move it around. Here we go. Yeah, because it's all going to show up at the same time. Oh, cuddling with my babies. Are they babies or are they human babies or fur babies? Because both count. Being outside, my exercise class, walking, lighting a candle, putting on a face mask, napping. That's my husband's number one. Gardening, walking, take it. That's awesome. And this is a great, like interactive, like hearing everybody. I love this Jamboard. So we can see it looks different. Journaling, we've gone from physical to introverted to lighting a candle. I love this. Whiskey. Okay. I like that one. Who's that? Gratitude list. I need to start doing that.
That's a good one.
Gardening. I don't see anybody that put, some weirdos put cleaning. I'm like, oh, okay. If that works for you.
I do like cleaning, but that usually just calms my anxiety.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you all for that. That's awesome. So is my self-care screen back up? Nick, okay, cool. All right. So all those things are important and they're all unique to you and what works best for you. And that is the most important thing to keep in mind. So what is self-care? It's something that you do for you to help you. There's co-care, right? Which is important, just as important. Like when I get my hair done, when I get a massage, when I get my nails done, all that is awesome and needed too. But self-care is something that you do for you. And it's about what works for you. That is so important. If I ended this right now and said, okay, for the next 15 minutes, we are going to meditate and do a mantra. Probably three-fourths of you will go, leave meeting and you're out, right? Because that is not for you, right? When somebody says, oh, I exercise and I run, I'm like, nope, that me sweating and no, that's just not me. So, but it's about what works for you. It doesn't matter if it works for you. And it's a lifestyle and an event. You have to be very intentional in what you're going to do for self-care. And there are different types of self-care, right? You have physical, emotional, social, spiritual, work, financial, space, personal. It's so important to do it, not only for yourself, but to model it to others. A couple of years back, I could tell I was biting everybody's head off. I was short. I just was like, ugh. And my daughter was having a particularly difficult time. And so I had to be on for her constantly. I think she had just gone out of the hospital and there was a lot she was dealing with. And I came home from work one day and she was there, and I went into my room and I shut the door. And I think I got a plate of food, went to my room, shut the door, turned the TV on. And I know I like those crime things like HLN and all that stuff. I binge those things. And she came in, I could tell the way she came in like all Igor, and I could tell she just wanted my, time and everything. And I could feel myself like rolling my eyes, like, here she comes, right? And I said to her, you know what? I need you to give me an hour. I need an hour to eat my food, to watch the show, to not speak to anybody. Nothing. I just need you to leave my room because I don't have any to give you right now. And I remember feeling horrible as she's walking out the door, and I was like, hey, and I'm like, I love you. It has nothing to do with you, but I need some time to me. And she goes, okay, and she walked out. And I remember feeling so guilty, but then when thinking about it, what a gift I gave her. I modeled what needs to be done when you're feeling overwhelmed. It would better for me, give me an hour to replenish myself than to listen to her halfway, rolling my eyes and not a good frame of mind, right? Because I was empty. So I found this self-care worksheet and I wanted to share it with you all. Some of you have, you like to write and journal, things like that. And I am sharing this in the document folder that I'll share with you right at the end of this. Mm-hmm. Things just to share just to have for yourself. Fill it out, keep it by your bed or keep it at work. What are some things that you can do? Not a bunch of stuff. You might not fill out all your boxes, but just it's something to think about.
Patrice.
Yeah.
We have a couple questions in the chat about co-care and just more about that.
Okay. What are they? I missed that.
Yeah, it's a new term, Patrice. I haven't heard of co-care either, so I'm interested as well. So
co-care, well, co-care is important, but it's not self-care, right? Self-care is something that you do for yourself. Like if you are journaling, if you are gardening, all those things that we shared on our Jamboard. Co-care is when you, along with somebody else, are supporting you to help with your self-care. Does that make sense? For me, that's if I get a massage, right? That would be co-care. If I get my nails done because that's what makes me feel pretty and it just, I love my hands massage, that's co-care. You could put it under the umbrella of self-care, but what I want to emphasize is that something that your self-care is something that you are doing for yourself. It's not, am I making sense with that? Do you see the difference in that? Self-care and co-care?
Patrice, I think, oh, sorry. Who's gonna unmute?
Somebody has to mute.
Me?
There we
I'm
go.
so sorry.
There we go.
I think Dee is raising her hand. Dee, I don't know if it already got answered or not.
Oh, Dee. Go ahead, Dee, you want to say something?
Yes, and excuse the interruption, but you said you wanted it interactive, but I just wanted to bring out a different point. When you said co-care, I immediately thought about the necessity of the caregiver to expect the care recipient to function at their highest possible level. So that's where I thought you were going with that, because I really feel it's so important to communicate that to caregivers, to not be putting the care recipient into even further dependency upon them, and to really expect them to do as much as they possibly can, which is a foreign concept to many caregivers.
And I apologize for that. I guess that's a good point with the group that I'm speaking to, how you would interpret co-care differently. I'm using it in the same realm as self-care and doing for yourself. I am not using it as a term as being a caregiver to someone else. So, but thank you, Dee, because I got to know the room, right? So I can totally see why you would all think that. So I'm not in your work world when I say co-care. I'm in your self-care world when I say co. My co-care is getting my nails done, getting my hair done. My husband's co-care is getting a massage, right? His self-care is he likes to exercise and run. Right? My self-care is definitely not doing that, right? My self-care is like binge watching TV or something like that. So question I had is, if anybody wants to share, and Nick, you can help me with the hand raising. I didn't see that and I apologize. If you were to build a self-care plan, what would life be like if you were intentional in doing those things? And what are some barriers you can anticipate? Anybody want to share?
I can give it a
I'll
shot.
share.
No, Donna, you first.
So last year, I think it was last year, COVID has me all mixed up on time. I was caregiving for an aunt of mine. And so, I make plans or do whatever for my self-care, for my mental health, and her needs would pop up, and a crisis would pop up. And that was a huge barrier for me, because I stopped making those plans because they kept getting interrupted. And that just made me more stressed, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that, Donna. I had that. I used to caregive for my grandfather before I moved down to Virginia. And professionally, I worked for DSS as a welfare examiner. So I would, be kind of in the trenches dealing with all that side of, things and the stress associated with having a caseload and having other people call when they have problems and emergencies, and then trying to make time to go to the gym for an hour on my way home from work to then go to my grandfather's to spend the night there, and not being able to sleep well because he had dementia and would get up in the middle of the night and wander around and try to get out and, things like that. Or he'd try to get dressed at 1 a.m. thinking it was, morning time. And it just got really difficult to make that 1 hour time to run at the gym. And especially, the New York winters are so dark. You get up in the morning and it's dark on your way to work. And by the time you get out of work, it's dark again. And you're trying to go and, deal with all that. And it just can get you down. So, but it was important. I don't think I would have burnt out a lot faster if I didn't have that gym time. But it was hard to do it.
Thank you all for sharing.
I think Connie's got her hand up.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Connie.
Hi. When I was caregiving for my parents, I know that life would have been better if I hadn't felt so isolated. But I was working probably at the time, maybe 50 to 60 hours a week. And then the rest of the time I was caring for my parents. And one of the barriers were my friends stopped asking me to do things because more so than not, I had to say no, I couldn't. So they just assumed that I wouldn't be able to do anything with them. But, it was all about the timing. I finally said, ask me, and I may say no 90% of the time, but there may be a time I can say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Donna, that's probably kind of sort of what you were, talking about. But it's tough. People would say, take care of yourself. I'm like, well, if you'll tell me how to do that, I'll be happy to do that. But it was very isolating. And some of the friends, I'm like, well, were they really my friends? Well, yeah, they were. They just didn't understand. They had no idea what it was like.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Connie. That was good though. If you would have said, don't stop asking me. Because I will say yes sometimes. I mean, at least be my little gnat in my ear to remind me that I need to, do that. So yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we're sharing the self-care plan. We're talking about things to look out for. Now, of course, I promise you, I'm not going to inundate you, but we're going to have to talk about some grounding techniques. Let me get out of my chat because it's affecting my Zoom presentation. So I've got like different grounding techniques. I know I'd love to hear from you all about what you use. But these are things you can model with another person that may need assistance with grounding and coming, that you can tell or, that's getting, anxious, or for yourself. And some of these you can do internally and some of those you can do outwardly. So the breathe, we all know, breathe, 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 breathe. I just got a steroid shot in my shoulder a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, ugh. And then I remember the doctor like, breathe. And I was like, oh yeah, sometimes we just forget to breathe. So some things we can do is like soup, right? I like to talk about the bowl of soup. This is something you can model with a child. You can model with somebody with dementia who, when somebody is in the mode of their brain, you can't go, calm down, no, stop, no, what's wrong? That's not how our brains work. We know this, that's not, you have to entertain that same side that's going, ah. So breathe. What I like to do is like hold a cup of soup and you just get face to face with somebody and you hold a cup of soup. Look at my soup bowl. And you're like, breathe it in through your nose. It smells so good. But it's really hot. So you're going to cool it off. So using that hand, right? Has anybody heard of the finger breathing? It's very visual. If somebody needs that visually, you're going to breathe in at the peaks and down with the valleys, right? So you're going to go in and out. In, a little longer. And out. Something can. And then the candles. I like to use that with little kids that are really upset. They always, I know I've been guilty of this when my kids were little, and sometimes I see people doing it now when some child's like snotting all over themselves and they can't breathe and they're all like upset. And then the parents like, calm down. You can't get up until you calm yourself down. I'm like, well, did you show them how to do that? So I like the candles when you're like, blow out the candles, take a deep breath in, blow out the candles. You're teaching them those types of things. And like I said, there are a whole lot more. And then the 4-7-8 rule, I know you've all heard of that, where you're breathing in for 4, holding it for 7, and exhaling for 8. That's a good one. I know sometimes when people talk about this, when they're having a hard time getting to sleep at night because there's so much on their mind, they'll use this 4-7-8. So you may want to try that. The sense, I love this, the 5-4-3-2-1 game. You can do this internally for yourself when you feel yourself getting anxious, and it will immediately ground you. I'm not going to get into the brains parts of it, but there's a side of the brain, as you know, the left side that does thinking, numbers, all that stuff. And then the other side does the smells, the senses, the feelings. So what you want to do is occupy both sides of the brain, right? Use them both, and it busies it up, and then it has no choice but to focus on something else, and you come down off that anxious feeling. So something you can do, describe, right? When you're sitting in whatever, office space or your house or whatever, describe, look around internal, and say, what are 5 things I see, right? You're keeping track of the number and you're keeping track of looking. 4 things I could touch right now if I wanted to. What are 4 things I could touch? You're using both sides of the brain. 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. I do this sometimes with myself, and then sometimes my daughter calls me and I can tell, then I'll just talk really calmly and I'll say, take a deep breath, and I'll look around, what are 5 things? And we work on that together. I've also made some cards at work, and I do know it works really well for children too. And I created it. You can create it where you're using the number they're looking at, and they can have a picture of eyes or fingers or something, and then they can track it themselves. I also have teachers that when some students have some challenges with grounding, they just they have it taped to their desk. And then the teacher can kind of just point to it, doesn't call them out. They can start doing that and working on that. Also, ice cream flavors are awesome. And I'm talking a lot of ice cream flavors. So you have to keep track of the number. And then in your mind, you have to visualize the different flavors. And there's no cheating. You can't make up flavors that you know darn well doesn't exist. But I'll say stuff like, give me 20 flavors of ice cream. That takes time, right? If they can even accomplish it. But again, you're working both sides. I apologize, my dog is awesome. So in conclusion, ultimately, if you remember nothing else, I want to remind you all to be gentle with yourself. You're doing the best you can, and to remind others to be gentle with themselves. And Lola says hi, sorry about that. So I can take any questions.
Hey, Patrice, I don't necessarily have a question, but I did have a comment. I like the fact several slides ago when you were talking about when you had asked, you had told Angeline to just give me, I need an hour. And I like the fact that you were, when you basically gave yourself permission. You did feel a little guilty at times because that guilt will come in, but you gave yourself permission to, take that time for yourself, even though she needed you right then. You know what I mean? So I thought that was interesting. Something that we need to remind ourselves to do. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's okay. It's okay to take time for yourself. You know what I mean? And not feel guilty about it. Just something that we have to do.
Yeah, some of the most important things when I'm working with folks is for them to have boundaries and be able to establish those and really hold to them. It creates a sense of power and agency. And, as you said, Moretta, sometimes you may feel guilty about it, but it's really important because it'll, when you're working with family, they'll begin to respect those boundaries. But if you let those boundaries be overrun constantly, you got no chance. So, a little bit of discipline, a little bit of stick-with-itness can go a long way when you're dealing with folks like that.
Anyone else? I know I threw a lot of information at you, but I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Patrice, I thought this was great, and confirmed some of the feelings that I had been having last year when I was going through all that too. So, and I liked that it was interactive and hearing from other people. Connie, you also, gave me some affirmation, so that felt good. So thank you, and I understood where you were coming from as well. Does anybody else have comments or questions or just an observation that you'd like to share about presentation or caregiving in general, your experiences?
Can go down. Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Hi, I don't have necessarily a ton of experience with caregiving, but I felt the presentation really resonated with me because a lot of this stuff I have been working on with a therapist because I have, some stuff going on, which is okay, normal, So, it's good to hear. I definitely think, especially with kids, teaching them how to emotionally regulate early on is good, to grow up and be able to regulate yourself and express to people how you're feeling and set those boundaries. So I think, what you're talking about is very important just for us in general, but also for caregivers. I think this was very, very good. So I thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any other additional grounding techniques that works for you that you want to share?
Look over there. It doesn't.
You want to be unmuted?
Okay. Oh, I see a chat.
A quick question, like grounding. I haven't heard that term before. So, and you were saying you have to do this before you're able to calm down. So I guess I'm trying. So grounding is like the step you do to help you calm down, or it's to help you calm down, right?
Yeah, like sometimes if we're feeling anxious, some of us, speaking of us, if we are feeling really anxious, right? We can, when I say grounding, that's what I mean when we're really anxious. If you are working with somebody or you have a family member that you know their signs that they're going like this, right? You want to get them before they're up here. The grounding techniques do not work, and please don't try those with somebody who's like in a full-blown panic attack or full-blown whatever. You're gonna have to ride that out. The grounding techniques are to help yourself and others come down before it gets that high. Does that make sense? You know, a panic, like if my daughter is in full-blown panic attack and I see she's having a panic attack, we just have to wait that out. You know, and it'll pass. It always does. And I'm a reminder of that. You know, it's okay. You know, let's just concentrate, you know, breathing and just talk soothing until it passes. But I'm not going to be in her face telling her to blow out candles, or, you know what I mean? If she's like already in a panic attack mode, or throw, like I know she says some people that she cares for, they'll get violent and they'll throw, and, you know, and things like that. And that's probably not the time to get in their face and say, okay, let's model the soup bowl. I mean, you know, that does that make sense? Well, thank you all so much for having me. And I think Nick is going to send out the evaluation link for you all. Please, 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 I would love it if you would do that. And again, it's called Taking Care of You. It's asking for the title. And we'll also be sharing the Google link that's going to have that self-care and some other things in there for you to look at.
I did send out the evaluation link.
Okay, thank you all so much.
Thank you, Patrice.
Patrice,
And
thank you so much.
Moretta and Nick and Donna, they all have my information. If anybody wants to reach out to me, feel free.
Thanks, Patrice.
Thank you again, Patrice.
Good presentation. Let me just remind everyone, next general meeting is November 19th at 9:30, so mark your calendars. And we will see you then, I hope. Have a great fall.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.